and that is the complex trauma. Okay, so I wanted to take some time to talk about this issue about the trauma and review the triple trauma paradigm. So I want to lay out the kind of a theoretical platform, and then from there I want to talk about experiences of Afghan immigrants and refugees in the host countries such as the United States, and acculturation, acculturative stress. I want to talk about the psychological impact of acculturative stress on Afghans, psychosocial issues as a result of acculturative stress, and then hopefully I will make justice in terms of offering you some recommendation, which is very difficult. You know, you have to understand that these issues are very complex, and we cannot really come up with overnight kind of solutions. It takes a community, a village, and inter-collaboration to get to the points. So as you know, if I may ask by the show of hands, how many of you, your parents have immigrated as refugees here? Okay, so the majority of you, including myself. So we bring a very unique kind of reality here. What it is refer here is the triple trauma paradigm. So as we were forced to leave our country, or your parents were forced to leave their country, they didn't have the time to really prepare. You probably have stories being told to you that they didn't have the time to say goodbye to their relatives. I didn't have the time to say goodbye to my own grandparents, my friends that I grew up with, and I was about 16 or so when I had to flee with my parents. And so there was that kind of unresolved kind of lack of closure, right? So you have to have closure. You have, you know, when you live in a very collectivistic society, you need to be able to say goodbye. You need to close those kind of relationships, but you were not told to. And so because of the sake of, for the fear of being, caught by the government and so on. So that's the fleeing stage. The pre-migration was referred to. That in itself is very stressful, brings tremendous stress to the family, to those who are going through this process. And then, this is called forced migration. You are not choosing to migrate. You are being forced due to political persecution and other issues. We all had to go through that as a result of political persecution, right? We're not here by our own choice. And so that has a whole different outcome when it comes to, those who choose, very consciously elect to leave one's country for the economic improvement, achieving better life and so on. So that is really, our reality is different from those who, for example, we have wonderful Indian-American community and other communities that actually selected and chose consciously to come here to improve their life. We didn't do that. We were forced. So what it is due to us is that we are left with a reality that we are going through losses, right? The losses and the collective trauma that we're here. Every single session that I went to yesterday, there was talk about identity. We're here to redefine our identity. And that's exactly as a result of this collective trauma that we had to go through. And there was these phases of recovery. It takes refugees a longer phase to recover from all these traumatic events, all these issues pertaining to their adjustment in the host country, as opposed to someone who comes here as an immigrant and knows what to do. I'm going to go to the university, I'm going to get my degree, and I'm going to have a better job and so on. And then I can also choose to go back home and then still reconnect with my family and everyone in the community. We didn't have these kind of choices. The next stage is the actual displacement, where we are forced to, how many of you your parents have gone to Pakistan or Iran or directly? Yes, I had to go to Germany with my family, and we spent about 72 hours in the airport. We were stateless. So what kind of impact does it have on your mental health, on your psychological? Who am I? You become overnight from being so-and-so almost nobody. You have to redefine your identity. And that's exactly what your parents had to go through. Redefine redefining their status, losses of status, losses of every single aspect of their existence, right? Personal losses. And so as a result, we are kind of becoming, when we enter the host countries such as the United States or other host countries in Australia and so on, we are emotionally numb, what I would refer to, because you're really constantly trying to make sense out of your situation. And your job has always been to kind of get it through this very stressful events to get to the host country. So once you get there, you're not necessarily experiencing all these emotional issues or reactions. Only when you find comfort in a society, that's where the stresses come up to the surface, because we have a very amazing kind of self-protective mechanism where we can in fact be protective of ourselves, and then once we feel adrenaline goes down, then everything comes up to the surface. And that's why we are facing so many psychological issues in our community, because that's the time where we can in fact afford thinking about what happened to us. Okay, so the stage that I would like to focus on is the post migration, and that's where we're not even going to talk about what happened individually. I think every single one who is here in this room has a narrative, has a story, how their parents got here, or if you came directly as a 6-year-old, 7-year-old, 7-year-old, and 8-year-old. There are some stories that you have. And so by remembering those stories, I can assure you that they remain with you. They actually help you to become the person you are today, right? And I'm not talking about negative experiences that you have to stay away from. Negative experiences are good because we learn from them and they define us and we survive and thrive. Of course, we would have to have the community and the kind of supportive community to help us, the resources. So what are the consequences of post-migrations and resettlement? I'm not going to talk about everyone in terms of what goes in the forced migration, traumatic events, of course, migration itself, the lack of uncertainty, where do I belong? Am I going to be accepted? Do I get my green card? All of those are stresses that we have to go through tremendously every day. The post-migration issues are related to acculturation, right? So these wonderful sisters who talked about, beautifully in terms of the gender issues, the gender issue, that the roles switch very quickly. More females are much more, acculturated easier, I think, and also based on research, than males, because males, especially coming from the more patriarchal societies, they go through tremendous losses of identity, losses of a job, loss of, social status, socioeconomic status. So they are caught up with kind of dealing with those kind of losses. But we women, we have a different kind of evolutionary, we're equipped with kind of a sense of survival mechanism. So we have to address. We have to attend to our children, we have to attend to their schools, we don't really have that kind of time to really address our own acculturation issues. But nevertheless, it does affect our psychological well-being in major ways. So psychological, other social issues relate to discrimination, right? This is a reality for everyone. As a minority, we do go through these experiences of discrimination, oppression, racism, and so on. So we have to deal with that as we go through the acculturation phase and learning the language. And then finally, what I really want to focus on is redefining our identity. And that's why you're here today. I love this gentleman's TED Talk who said, we're Beshak village. This is beautiful because he somehow, came to the conclusion that he needs to create his own identity, his own village, his own community. And that's where you come in to take charge and not to pay attention to what happened. Yes, it does include everyone's mental health and issues related to adjustment and acculturation, but nevertheless, take ownership in terms of who you are and what you can do. So that process of redefining stressors that Afghan community immigrants face here is The possibility of not returning to your home country. Of course, nowadays you can go back and forth or your parents, but imagine that at the beginning your parents were not allowed to go back. And so then I was told by my parents that, yes, you can go to school, but we're going to return anyway. So that sense of growing up with the sense of, I'm not going to stay here for a long time, that is creating a very unstable kind of identity in a way that nevertheless, I'm going to just postpone, and whenever I come across a difficult, challenging situation, I'm not going to resolve it, because at the end I'm going to go back to Afghanistan anyway. You see? So then we postpone our own achievement, our own kind of need to achieve our best what we can. That's one. Loss of family and friends, of course, that's a multiple, everybody goes through that. And then concerns about cultural adaptation as well as language barriers. To give you kind of an example, as Dr. Alami will talk about mostly about the research that has been done in relation to mental health and psychosocial well-being of Afghans, but I thought I would give you this very brief results of a study that was done in Alameda County in California in 2011. That the sample was very, very large, and what the results showed that 87% of the Afghan population here in the county were in life-threatening situations while in Afghanistan or while leaving the country. So what does that do to your psyche, to your psychological well-being, to your wellness, and as well as your worldview, as how you see the world, from what lens do you really interpret the world? It's a lens from the fear of losing, a fear of being followed. I mean, every single time when presenters came here and talk about their experiences or family, those are very real experiences that need to be acknowledged, and those experiences affect our day-to-day kind of relationship. 78% had close family members or friends who were killed or somehow during the wars. If I may ask, and I apologize for this, and because it brings a lot of difficult emotional reactions to you, I can tell you that I have lost 3 or 4 family members during the war, right? So that kind of affects us, how we see and how we relate with each other, how we hear the stories from our parents, those narratives that stick in us, in our own kind of psyche, and it's like a tape, right? And it defines in terms of your day-to-day reality on a daily basis, even though you don't want to have to do anything with that. You want to get away with that. I just want to be myself, you say. And yes, absolutely, but nevertheless, these kinds of narratives and trauma goes intergenerationally, and we need to address that, okay? So I'm not going to go through all the statistics, but other than that, 71% of men held hostage were tortured and while in captivity. And all of these things, when you hear as a child of a parent who's been imprisoned and has gone through so much adversity, what does that do to you? What kind of emotional reaction does it come up for you? Do you think that you're going to be out there taking revenge on behalf of your parents? So there's anger, there's frustration, there's unresolved feelings that we normally go through, and we don't have a space to address them. And I'm really glad that these organizers did a fantastic job to give space to mental health issues, because we create space, and we need to do that more often to demystify the stigma that is associated with mental health and mental illness. So if we start talking about these issues, I think we already have done a great job, right? The first step is to talk about it. So all of these statistics that you read there, and I didn't go through every one of them, what does that do to our psyche? When we come to a host country, the process that it's referred to as acculturation is really the psychological change, right? I mean, you talk about things that you don't agree with your parents. That's because you have changed. They probably have also changed, and they have also they do their best to adapt, right? It's all what they can, because imagine when you strip them away from the whole reality, you take them out of that reality context, what is left to them? Nothing, and that can be anxiety-provoking, right? Somebody comes to you today and says, your reality does not exist. What will become of you? That's anxiety provoking. And acculturated stress, as we go through this reactions and responses to life, and some people may end up, dealing with acculturation very easily, very nicely and smoothly, and others will get, feel challenged by and might also feel stuck, depending on the resources that may or may not be available to them. So, as a result of this acculturation, we go, directly through acculturative stress. If they become chronic, they may end up causing us feeling depressed, anxious. They may also cause us running out of resources. And so what we may resort to would be inappropriate type of coping mechanisms, such as alcohol, drugs, addiction, all sorts of issues that are not appropriate in order to deal with the actual cause. So not talking about it, kind of building up all these issues and then taking it out on others. Angry outbursts. We do have issues in our community. Domestic violence is a tremendous, it's not a taboo anymore. We need to talk about that. How to be gentle, how to be compassionate toward each other. And where is it coming from, right? I don't think that people are really evil. I don't believe in that. The minute I start thinking about it, we're born in an evil, then I will, lose hope in humanity. Psychological tension arises as a result of acculturative stress, and if they're not addressed, then it becomes chronic, and violence, substance abuse, and everything else will follow as a result of that. So, some of the major significant stressors that exist in our communities, barriers to social acceptance as a result of acculturative stress, cultural differences, and as well as stress related to migration issues and prejudice. And this is, your mental health, our mental health, is not just individual and personal. It's so much based on the socio-political issues that are here in our community and they're not addressed. I'm a psychologist. I'm trained by the Western model of, everybody is responsible for his or her behavior. I do believe in that, but I also believe that if we're not addressing the socio-political issues here, such as discrimination, such as racism, such as all of these issues, then we are not going to be having a healthy recovery and having an overall recovery. In talking to clients and other individuals, I've been told that they are having a hard time, for example, making decisions in life. It's very easy to feel stuck at times, because when we're depressed, when our cognitive function is so much impaired as a result of chronic depression, that will affect our decision making, that will affect our sense of reality, and so on. Development of personal crisis and depression, anxiety, identity confusion. And then what I also want to address is the desire to have secrecy, right? This is a huge problem in our community, to keep everything secret, to keep everything, we are a nation being in denial, right? So what happens? Why is it that we are so want to stay away from, really admitting what is going on with me? Yes, I know that there is a trust issue. That also comes from the experience of us being a refugee and being persecuted. So the trust is a huge issue in our community. And so we need to be careful in terms of not to accuse, not to judge the person that you have so many issues you don't want to talk about. Because there's absolutely always a reason for them not to come forward to talk. But we have to create this kind of trusting environment, space like this. I'm absolutely inspired by all your contributions that you're making in every single session I went, because you are basically ready to change the community, and that's why we're here. So the secrecy aspect, we need to let go of it. And I'm not here to, asking everyone to put their dirty laundry everywhere. And I'm just talking about the taboo topics, right? Somebody yesterday mentioned, why is it that we don't educate our children on sex education? Why aren't we? Right? I mean, there's tremendous, consequences of lack of sex education. Why, those taboo issues need to be addressed in our community to be able to really have a healthy community that we can be proud of. And then treatment avoidance is the other issue that, I can tell you that is a very highly, frequently occurring phenomenon that minority individuals really don't seek treatment, they just don't go there depending on their background and, socio-cultural background, because we believe in talking to our aunts and uncles or neighbors and so on. But those social structures are no longer here, right? So if I'm not promoting being in treatment or go to psychotherapy or individual therapy, but seek out some help in terms of, in terms of projecting it onto other family members and so on. So these are some of the issues that really came up in my work as well as my observation. Other additional concerns that parents have is about the assimilating of the children. Oh my goodness, you're becoming an American. What's going on with you? You're not necessarily being an Afghan anymore. Children, loss of cultural identity is an issue for the parents. But somebody mentioned yesterday, and she was Sophie, I believe, Sophie, right? She had a TED Talk. She said, we need to listen to our own parents as well. We need to listen to their narratives, right? And so be with an empathic kind of approach and compassion. And I don't think that they're there to inflict harm on us. We just need to understand their reality when they address that. So those kind of communication goes both ways. We have to have the ability to really feel okay about listening to our parents. Other changes that we go through the acculturation is the issues related to male gender norms. They have switched, and still not enough, quick enough. Education issues, adolescents. We have a pool of adolescents that we need to help. I mean, you're the role models for them. You are the educated cadre of Afghan community who can be the role models for our adolescents and can really mentor. Mentorship is tremendously important. Issues related to pattern of risk-taking behaviors. These are the consequences of acculturation, like what is appropriate, what is not. Also, what is really the slowest change that occurs is parenting beliefs and practices. That is the research has shown that the slowest change that immigrants and refugees go through. And finally, but not least, female gender norms, right? So we're still here talking about how we can challenge our gender norms. That will take a tremendous, tremendous time. But I'm so glad, I'm so pleased to hear my sisters talking about these issues and coming and taking ownership of this. So all of this, I want to just quickly go to this graph right there. It shows you, when it comes to entering a host country, we go through a honeymoon stage. Everything is nice, everything is beautiful. There's the American dream, and we can go and achieve, and But then there is also the crisis that we encounter, which actually, results of our realizing, boy, I'm facing all these barriers. How am I going to even go through this and become the person that I want to be? So there is the crisis that people normally go through. It's very personally different for each individual, and then hopefully through enough resources, enough community building, we can really get up to the adjustment phase, which is kind of gradual, right? So here, I think that I could have never imagined having this conference, about 10 years ago. Right? So this is part of adjustment. We're adjusting slowly but surely. And so we're here gathered to be together and talk about these issues. So what can I do in terms of offer you in terms of recommendations? First of all, accepting the fact that degree of acculturative stress experience is linked to the strategy of acculturation is chosen by each individual. So my hope is that my community will be integrated at some point. By integration, I don't necessarily mean that you have to, or parents need to come fully American or whatever that means, because I don't have any concept of American, honestly. When you ask what the definition of American is, I don't know what it is. But integrate in a sense that, to increase their language skills, to increase their occupational skills. And so integration does not mean that you are going to have to lose and go through losses of identity. You beautifully, somebody said here earlier, you take the most beautiful aspect of both cultures and then be proud of who you are. And that has also been shown in mental health to be the best outcome, positive outcome for overall functioning. And then public health education, forums like this, these are very informative to talk about, the taboo issues that have impacted our communities so drastically, so negatively, and to kind of put a stop there. Enough is enough, and we take ownership. Child-parent communication. I would like to see at some point further conferences, some parents being involved to really talk about what is going on with you, what is going on in your world, and so I can bring in my own reality to you. And healthy parenting strategies. I mean, a lot of my work is really talking about parents and how not to give them a lecture. That is not my job. To really lay out kind of options in terms of based on research, based on empirical evidence, and so on. What's the best approach to choose? Because at the end of the day, they are the ones who can choose what's best for them. And I need to be culturally competent enough to do that. Healthy, and as well as destigmatization of mental health issues. I think that, somebody was talking yesterday in the medical forum about mental health in general, depression. I think what we did not address was the stigma that's so much associated. That is not unique to the Afghan community. That's very much common to every single community you go, American, Indian, anywhere, stigma. And we, as a psychologist, we didn't do a good job, and I take full responsibility for that because the focus, my whole training was focused on disorder, disease, and so DDD basically. And we need to stay away from that kind of concept. We need to address the holistic person from the holistic perspective. Mental health, spiritual, social, cultural, political, and so on. And building stronger Afghan immigrant communities, and that's why you're here. You wanted to build a wonderful, young community of Afghans and who are just motivated to do better and find their ultimate goal, which is being successful and healthy and peaceful in this country. So stronger professional Afghan organizations to help strengthen our community. And of course, I'm an educator, I believe, and I'm biased toward education. Education is the only way to survive here. And I thank you for your attention.